Charles H. Anderson was born around 1825 in Danbury, Connecticut, and he seems to have grown up in the same town. By the spring of 1861, he had a wife named Emma and was working as a hatter. 3 days after Fort Sumter was attacked, on April 15, 1861, President Lincoln put out a call for Union states to quickly raise and train volunteer regiments to serve for a period of 3 months. It was believed at the time that 3 months was all it would take to put down the rebellion, and many young men rushed to the recruiting offices, eager to preserve the Union and avenge Fort Sumter. One of these men was Charles Anderson, who joined the First Connecticut Volunteer Infantry on April 19, 1861. Private Anderson's military training took place in a vacant lot on the western side of Hartford, Connecticut, and it was brief, because by early May the regiment was traveling up the Potomac River on the steamboat Bienville. The 1st Connecticut Volunteers arrived in Washington, D.C. on Sunday morning, May 13, 1861, and they settled into a camp at Glenwood, roughly 2 miles north of the capital, where Private Anderson wrote this letter 2 days later. Washington, D.C., May 15, 1861. Dear Wife, I promised to write you when we arrived at our place of rendezvous. I have just got time to do so, although we have been here since Sunday morning. We started from New Haven on Thursday at 11 o'clock at night on the steamship Bienville, and after a very pleasant trip we anchored off Washington Arsenal at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. In our passage up the Potomac, we anchored near the Virginia shore for 10 hours on Saturday night. We had to station some 70 guards all about the ship all night to prevent surprise, but we were not molested. However, we also passed the city of Alexandria. It is called the hotbed of secession. The government has the gunboat Pawnee anchored close to the shore. Alexandria is only 5 miles from Washington. The gunboat is placed in such a position that she commands the whole city, and can destroy every house in it if it makes the slightest demonstration of an attack. When we passed by there was a secession flag flying over the town. But it will not remain there much longer. There can be no less than 50,000 troops concentrated in and around Washington, and there is every prospect of General Scott assuming the offensive soon. We marched through Washington during the hottest part of Monday, and are now encamped about 2 miles from the capital. It was the most fatiguing march that I ever made. We had about 25 pounds in our knapsacks, as well as our muskets and canteens to carry with us when we arrived at our encampment. Most of us were used up. There was a good many of the regiment that fell out from the ranks on the way. The weather is very warm. The general appearance of the country is about the same as it is in Danbury in June. We have had radishes and other vegetables whenever we can get a chance to get out of camp. I do not get any chance myself, but the boys give me some whenever I want some. Dear Sarah, how did you get home from New Haven? It was as much as I could do to keep from going with you home. I am far away from home now, but my thoughts are always with those dear ones left behind. Dearer now than ever to me. I hope to come home all safe and sound. 4 weeks is already gone, and the others will soon follow. I am still in good health, although I am very much exposed to the weather. We have not got any straw to lay on yet. I get up every morning feeling very stiff, but I soon get over it. I have to get up every morning at 4:30 o'clock. Give my love to all the folks and accept as many hearts as you want, and always Mother the same. I send you $10 for Mr. Weed. I suppose you go over by his house. Tell him that I will write soon. Goodbye, my dear. C. Anderson. The Confederate flag Charles observed waving defiantly over Alexandria, Virginia, flew from the Marshall House Hotel on King Street, and Private Anderson was right. It would not remain there much longer. On the evening of May 23, 1861, President Lincoln ordered his good friend, Colonel Elmer Ephraim Ellsworth, commander of the 11th New York Volunteer Infantry, to cross the Potomac River into Virginia and occupy the city of Alexandria. The 11th New York crossed the Potomac River without resistance early on the 24th, and once the town was secured, Colonel Ellsworth and some of his men went into the Marshall House Hotel to lower the Confederate flag from its roof. Colonel Ellsworth was descending the Marshall House's stairs with the Confederate flag in hand when the hotel's owner, James Jackson, shot him through the heart. Acting quickly in the cramped stairwell, one of Ellsworth's men, Corporal Francis Brownell, returned fire, killing Jackson. News of Ellsworth's death traveled quickly throughout the North. Lincoln struggled with the grief of losing his young friend, in addition to the pressure of addressing the growing conflict among the states. Indignant over the killing of a man who was not only a Union officer, but also a close friend of the president, Northerners grew increasingly eager for war. By early July, the 1st Connecticut was camped at Falls Church, Virginia, and it was part of a brigade comprised of the 2nd and 3rd Connecticut Volunteers, along with the 2nd Maine, and they were under the command of Colonel Erasmus Keyes. On July 16th, the entire army, under General McDowell's command, began its advance toward Manassas, and Keyes' brigade, designated as the 1st Brigade, 1st Division, had the advance, the 1st Regiment covering the left of the head of columns as skirmishers, and the 2nd covering the right. They camped that first night at Vienna, and the 2nd at Germantown, arriving at Centreville on the 18th. At midnight on Saturday, July 20th, the brigade advanced toward Bull Run, and was detached to guard the Warrentown Road. Colonel Keyes, in his official report, said, "The order of advance was given at about 10 o'clock a.m., and from that hour to 4 p.m. my brigade was in constant activity on the field of battle. 1st Regiment Connecticut Volunteers was met by a body of cavalry and infantry, which it repelled, and at several other encounters at different parts of the line the enemy constantly retired before us. Before recrossing Bull Run, and until my brigade mingled with the retreating mass, it maintained perfect freedom from panic, and at the moment I received the order to retreat, and for some time afterward, it was in as good order as in the morning on the road. Half an hour earlier I supposed the victory to be ours." Before nightfall, the entire brigade had reached its former campground at Centreville, and the men suffered much from exhaustion, many falling asleep on their rifles. Private Charles Anderson mustered out of the 1st Connecticut on July 31st, 1861, in New Haven, Connecticut, but he wasn't done with the Army. He joined Company B of the 1st Connecticut Heavy Artillery on February 4th, 1862, and fought with them during the siege of Yorktown, the battles of Gaines Mill, Malvern Hill, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, and Gettysburg, as well as the siege of Petersburg, where he witnessed the Petersburg mine explosion. Private Anderson was mustered out of the Heavy Artillery on March 13, 1865, and he returned to his wife Emma in Danbury, Connecticut.